The galactic medical station Helix floated silently in orbit around the crimson gas giant Azara 9. The station was a marvel of interspecies cooperation, a place where medics from dozens of planets worked together, each bringing their unique healing methods and technologies to assist those in need. Its sleek, silver architecture curved gently, reflecting the orange-red hues of the planet below. The corridors of the station bustled with activity, engineers maintaining life support systems, scientists conducting research, and medics treating patients from across the galaxy. Inside one of the many medical wings, alien nurse Zara was finishing her rounds. She was an Aethora, a species known for their empathy and advanced understanding of biochemistry. Her skin was a soft, glowing shade of blue, with a gentle translucence that shimmered under the station's cool lighting. Long, silvery hair flowed down her back, defying gravity in the low-G environment, giving her an ethereal presence. Zara's fingers were elongated and dexterous, perfect for the precise medical work she was known for. She wore the standard medical uniform, a form-fitting, silver suit with luminescent green patterns that pulsed in sync with her own biorhythms, a feature unique to Aethora physiology. Zara had just completed a difficult surgery on a Trilaxian patient when a new emergency alert blinked on her wrist communicator. Her luminescent eyes narrowed as she read the details. A human male, severely injured in a space accident, was being brought in. His escape pod had collided with debris during a hyperjump, leaving him with multiple fractures and internal bleeding. The injuries were critical, but humans, she knew, were resilient creatures. It was going to be a long night. The sound of hissing doors cut through the sterile hum of the medical bay as the emergency team arrived, carrying the human on an anti-gravity stretcher. Zara moved swiftly to meet them, her thoughts racing as she assessed the situation. The young man, Alex, appeared to be in his late 20s. He had short-cropped brown hair, a rugged face, and a body that hinted at a lifetime of physical training. His breathing was ragged, and his face contorted in pain as they maneuvered him onto a treatment bed that floated slightly above the metallic floor. Zara adjusted the controls of the bed, activating the stabilization field that wrapped around Alex's broken form like a cocoon, keeping him immobile without the pressure of physical restraints. She took a deep breath, focusing on the task at hand. The room was filled with a mix of alien and human nurses, each from different backgrounds, but all working in harmony. Their movements were efficient, each one trained to handle emergencies from a variety of species. The hum of advanced medical scanners and the beeping of monitors provided a steady rhythm to their work. Zara initiated a full-body scan using a holographic display that hovered above Alex's form, revealing a web of injuries: 3 broken ribs, a punctured lung, severe bruising along the spine, and internal bleeding in the lower abdomen. She knew time was against them. Her heart rate quickened as she reviewed the damage, an instinctive response despite her training to remain calm in high-stress situations. Prepare a dose of Risotrin 7, Zara instructed a fellow nurse, her voice carrying a musical undertone typical of her kind. Risotrin 7 was a powerful Aethorian painkiller, capable of numbing the nervous system almost entirely, allowing for rapid cellular regeneration. It was known to be effective on multiple species, including humans. She had used it many times before without incident. But as the nurse handed her the syringe-like device, Zara hesitated for a moment, a feeling of unease settling in her chest. Something about this case felt different, though she couldn't pinpoint why. Zara shook off the thought and pressed the injector against Alex's neck, delivering the painkiller directly into his bloodstream. Almost immediately, she could see the effects taking hold. His breathing steadied, and his face relaxed as the pain receded. The monitors displayed a reduction in stress levels, and the medical AI's voice chimed in with its approval. Patient response normal. Begin treatment. With the pain under control, Zara moved quickly, using her bioluminescent hands to guide a series of nanoprobes into Alex's chest, repairing the internal bleeding and reinforcing his fractured ribs with a mesh of synthetic bone matter. As she worked, she couldn't help but notice how fragile human bodies seemed compared to her own kind. Ithorians had the ability to regenerate lost limbs and withstand extreme environmental conditions, but humans were delicate, yet their tenacity to survive against the odds never ceased to amaze her. The minutes ticked by, and the tension in the room began to ease. The initial crisis had passed, and Alex's vital signs stabilized, his body responding well to the repairs. Zara finally allowed herself a small sigh of relief. She stepped back to examine the results, her gaze lingering on the monitor that displayed Alex's heart rate and neural activity. But then something unexpected happened. Alex's heart rate began to climb, slowly at first, then with increasing speed. His skin, which had been pale and clammy from shock, now flushed with a deep red, as if his body temperature was spiking. Zara's eyes widened, and she quickly adjusted the bed scanners, bringing up a real-time analysis of his nervous system. The readings were erratic signals firing throughout his brain and spinal cord, far beyond the normal parameters. That's strange. His body should be in a state of deep relaxation, Zara murmured, her fingers dancing over the controls as she adjusted the sensors, trying to understand what was happening. The other nurses exchanged puzzled glances, and one of them, a Cormatian with translucent skin, moved closer to the display. Maybe he's having an adverse reaction to the painkiller, she suggested, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Zara nodded, though the thought troubled her. It's possible, but I've never seen a reaction like this before, not in any human case. Resotran 7 should have put him into a near comatose state to aid with the regeneration process. She glanced at Alex, whose breathing had become erratic again, his body shivering despite the warmth of the stabilization field. Sweat glistened on his forehead, and his pupils dilated widely, as if reacting to some unseen stimulus. Increase cooling levels in the stabilization field, Zara instructed, trying to counter the sudden rise in his body temperature. But as she did, Alex's muscles began to twitch, responding to even the slightest adjustment of the field. Zara reached out, her cool, glowing fingers brushing against Alex's arm in an attempt to steady him. The moment she made contact, his body jerked, and a sharp gasp escaped his lips. Zara recoiled slightly, startled by the intensity of his response. It was as if a jolt of energy had passed between them, something she couldn't quite explain. Her mind raced, trying to recall any mention of similar symptoms in the station's medical database, but nothing came to mind. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to focus. She couldn't afford to let her unease distract her. Alex's life depended on her keeping her composure. She activated the communication link to the station's central medical AI, its digital voice crackling through the room. AI, analyze patient's response to Resotran 7, cross-reference with all known cases involving human physiology. The AI's voice was calm and clinical, offering little comfort. Analyzing, no previous records indicate similar reactions in human patients. Patient's nervous system exhibits heightened synaptic activity and anomalous autonomic response, cause unknown. Further data required. Zara bit her lip in frustration, feeling the weight of the unknown pressing down on her. She glanced at Alex again, his body still tense, as if caught in a battle with itself. This was no ordinary reaction. It was something deeper, something that her training had not prepared her for. And as the minutes stretched on, a nagging thought took root in her mind. Was this just an unusual reaction, or was there something about human physiology that they had yet to fully understand? She took a step closer to the bed, her hands hovering above the controls as she considered her next move. The other nurses watched, waiting for her direction, but Zara felt an unfamiliar sensation stirring within her. Doubt. She realized that Alex was not just another patient to be treated, he was a puzzle, a mystery that might redefine her understanding of human biology. For a brief moment, she wondered if she had made a mistake by administering the Resotran 7 so quickly, if her confidence in its universal efficacy had blinded her to the potential risks. But now, there was no turning back. She had to find a way to stabilize Alex, even if it meant navigating through uncharted territory. And as she set to work, her mind was already racing ahead, thinking of all the possible explanations and the dangerous implications they might hold for human-alien medical care. The soft hum of the Galactic Medical Station Helix filled the air, blending with the rhythmic beeping of monitors that tracked Alex's unstable vitals. Zara's mind raced as she reviewed the data on the floating holographic screen in front of her. Despite her best efforts, Alex's condition continued to baffle her. The initial signs of stabilization had faded, replaced by a chaotic storm of neural activity. His heart rate spiked dangerously, and his skin glowed a feverish red, radiating heat that the cooling system struggled to counter. Zara clenched her jaw, frustration welling up within her. Around her, the other medical personnel murmured quietly, their voices tinged with worry. Her Cormatian colleague Vela, who had a semi-translucent, pearl-like body that glowed with concern, glanced at Zara. "What should we do? His body is fighting the medication. We might need to sedate him manually." Zara shook her head, her silvery hair flowing gently with the movement. "Sedation could risk his nervous system shutting down completely. We need to understand what's happening to him first." Her blue-skinned fingers flew over the console, accessing advanced diagnostic tools that scanned deeper into Alex's physiology. The holographic display expanded, showing a complex web of synaptic connections firing erratically throughout his brain. With each passing minute, Zara's worry grew. She studied the monitor, noting how the readings seemed to fluctuate wildly, as if Alex's body was caught between two states, one of relaxation induced by the painkiller and another of heightened sensory awareness. It was a paradox she had never encountered before. The AI's clinical report had provided no answers, and the data offered only more questions. Vela, sensing Zara's unease, stepped closer and rested a comforting hand on Zara's shoulder, her touch cool and calming. "You've handled tougher cases, Zara. Maybe it's just a matter of finding the right counterbalance. We could try a lower dose of Nixolon to stabilize his neural pathways." Zara considered Vela's suggestion, but her intuition told her that this case was different. Nixolon was often used to stabilize alien species with hyperactive nervous systems, but it had never been tested on humans before. She feared that adding another alien drug into Alex's system without understanding the cause of his reaction could worsen the situation. She needed more information. Turning back to the medical console, Zara initiated a deep scan of Alex's neurotransmitter levels and hormonal response. As she worked, Alex's body continued to twitch, his muscles reacting to invisible stimuli. He groaned softly, his face twisted in discomfort. Zara's heart tightened at the sight. Despite her training, she felt a pang of empathy for the young human suffering before her. She knew he was relying on her expertise, and the weight of that responsibility pressed heavily on her shoulders. As the scan progressed, a peculiar pattern began to emerge on the screen. Zara leaned in closer, her eyes narrowing as she analyzed the data. There was a surge of adrenaline coursing through Alex's veins far beyond what should have been possible under the effects of the painkiller. It was as if his body was responding to a life-threatening situation, triggering a primal fight or flight response despite his immobile state. "How is this possible?" Zara muttered under her breath, her mind racing through the possibilities. She accessed the medical database, searching for any recorded instances of similar reactions in humans or related species. But the archives were silent, offering no precedent for the anomaly she faced. Frustration boiled within her as she scanned through pages of medical texts, finding nothing that matched Alex's condition. Vela, who had been observing Zara's struggle, spoke up again. "Maybe we're approaching this from the wrong angle. Humans have a reputation for adapting to new environments and stimuli. What if his body is interpreting the painkiller as some kind of foreign threat?" Zara paused, considering Vela's theory. It was a long shot, but it made a certain kind of sense. Human physiology was notoriously adaptable, and their nervous systems had evolved to handle extreme stress in unpredictable ways. Perhaps Alex's body, in its desperation to survive, was treating the alien medication as a danger rather than a remedy. But even if that were true, It didn't explain why his neural activity was so erratic. "Let's try recalibrating the stabilization field to match his biorhythms," Zara suggested. "If we can sync the field with his natural frequencies, it might help to calm his body down." She adjusted the settings on the console, fine-tuning the field to align with the patterns of Alex's heart rate and neural signals. The moment she activated the recalibrated field, Alex's body tensed violently, as if resisting the adjustment. His back arched, and his breathing grew ragged. Alarms blared, filling the room with a high-pitched wail that sent a shiver down Zara's spine. She quickly deactivated the field, her hands trembling slightly. "Damn it. It's not working," she muttered, her frustration mounting. Alex's condition was deteriorating, and she felt the weight of her failure pressing down on her. She had never encountered a patient who defied treatment so stubbornly. But beneath her frustration, a new feeling emerged: determination. She refused to let this young human slip away under her care. Zara turned to Vela and the other nurses, her voice firm. "We need to think outside the box. Vela, get me a sample of his blood and cerebral fluid. I'll analyze it manually. I need to know exactly what's happening inside him." Vela nodded and swiftly prepared the extraction equipment, while Zara cleared a space on a nearby lab station. Within minutes, a small vial of Alex's blood and a sample of his cerebral fluid rested on the workstation, glowing faintly under the sterile lights of the lab. Zara focused on the samples, using a precision scanner to break down their molecular structure. As she analyzed the results, a new anomaly caught her attention. The risotrin 7 had bonded to a protein in Alex's bloodstream, creating a compound that was completely foreign to her understanding of biochemistry. This new substance appeared to be acting as a neural stimulant, amplifying the signals between Alex's synapses rather than suppressing them. Zara's eyes widened as the implications became clear. The painkiller isn't numbing his senses, it's amplifying them. His body is processing the drug in a way we've never seen before. That's why his heart rate is spiking and why he's reacting to even the slightest touch. Vela looked over Zara's shoulder, her own translucent face reflecting the shock in Zara's expression. But why would his body react like that? It doesn't make any sense. Zara thought for a moment, her mind racing through everything she knew about human physiology. Humans are resilient, but they're also vulnerable to unfamiliar substances. His immune system might be overcompensating, treating the compound as a threat and pushing his body into overdrive. She turned back to the medical console, accessing the records of Alex's last mission. According to the report, he had been on a deep space survey mission in the Epsilon Quadrant, an area known for its unpredictable cosmic phenomena. It was possible that his exposure to radiation or unknown elements during the mission had affected his physiology, making him more susceptible to the effects of the risotrin 7. Zara's mind reeled with the possibilities. This case was more complicated than she had ever imagined. It wasn't just a simple reaction to a drug, it was a collision of biology, chemistry, and the unknown dangers of deep space. And now she was faced with a difficult choice. She could attempt to synthesize a counter-serum that might neutralize the effects of the risotrin 7, but without fully understanding the risks, she could accidentally cause further harm to Alex. She glanced at his face, twisted in discomfort, and knew she couldn't wait any longer. His condition was growing worse by the minute. She took a deep breath and accessed the station's genetic synthesis lab, preparing the formula for the counter-serum. Her hands moved with practiced speed, but her heart pounded with uncertainty. The formula she created was a mix of human neurotransmitter stabilizers and Ithorian calming agents, a delicate blend that she hoped would balance Alex's heightened senses without shutting down his nervous system. As she filled the syringe with the serum, Zara whispered a silent prayer to the ancient spirits of her people, seeking guidance in the face of the unknown. She approached Alex's bed, the syringe in hand, and hesitated for a moment, feeling the weight of the decision she was about to make. If the serum worked, it could stabilize him long enough for his body to recover. If it failed, the consequences could be dire. But as she looked at Alex's pale face, she knew there was no other option. "Administering counter-serum," she announced, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her chest. She pressed the syringe against Alex's arm and injected the serum into his bloodstream, watching as the pale blue liquid disappeared into his veins. For a moment, nothing happened. The room was tense with anticipation, the other medics holding their breath as they waited for a reaction. Zara's gaze was fixed on the monitors, watching the fluctuating lines that represented Alex's life. Then slowly, the readings began to change. His heart rate steadied, and his breathing grew more even. The tension in his muscles eased, and the flush of his skin began to fade. Zara let out a shaky sigh of relief. But she knew this was only the beginning. The mystery of Alex's condition had only deepened, and she had to find answers before it was too late. The dim lights of the Galactic Medical Station Helix cast long shadows over the pristine surfaces of the medical bay, giving the room a haunting, almost otherworldly glow. Zara's breath caught in her chest as she watched the monitors, her silvery hands clutching the edge of the treatment bed. Alex's vital signs had finally stabilized, the chaotic spikes in his heart rate now evening out into a steady rhythm. But the tension in the room remained palpable, thick like a storm cloud that refused to break. For a moment, relief washed over her. The counter-serum seemed to have worked, bringing Alex back from the brink. His body relaxed into the support of the anti-gravity bed, and the flush of heat that had turned his skin crimson began to fade back to a more natural tone. Zara wiped a stray bead of sweat from her brow, the cool air of the bay chilling her skin. Vela, the Cormatian nurse, stepped forward, her translucent face reflecting a soft, iridescent glow as she studied the readings on the holographic display. "He's stabilizing, Zara. You did it," she said, her voice carrying a note of awe. "But I don't understand how this happened. How could a painkiller cause such a drastic reaction?" Zara didn't respond immediately. Her mind raced through the events of the last few hours, the unexpected reaction, the rush to create the counter-serum, the uncertainty that had lingered in every decision. She turned to Vela, her face thoughtful. "It's not just the painkiller, Vela. There's something about Alex's physiology that's interacting with it in a way we've never seen before." She moved closer to the bed, her fingers hovering over the control panel as she initiated another deep scan of Alex's system. The medical AI's voice chimed in, its tone cold and precise as it processed the new data, analyzing patient's current condition. Neural activity has stabilized. Adrenaline levels decreasing. No signs of further anomalies detected. Zara frowned. The AI's analysis was thorough, but she had learned that some things couldn't be explained by numbers and data alone. There was an instinctive feeling, a sense that something deeper was at play, lurking beneath the surface of what they could observe. She accessed the logs of Alex's deep space mission again, scanning for any clues that might explain his reaction. As she reviewed the report, her eyes caught on a line she had missed before exposure to Class X electromagnetic pulses during survey of Azara 9's asteroid field. Minimal radiation detected. No immediate signs of harm to crew. It was a minor note, something that had likely been dismissed as unimportant. But Zara's intuition flared. Class X pulses were known to interact with biological systems in strange ways, and while humans were resilient, they were not immune to the effects of deep space. "Vela, look at this," Zara said, gesturing to the report. Alex was exposed to electromagnetic pulses during his mission. It's possible that it altered his body's response to certain stimuli, including the Rhizotrans 7. His nervous system might be more sensitive than usual. Vela leaned in, her pearlescent skin reflecting the data on the screen. But electromagnetic pulses affecting a painkiller response? That seems far-fetched, even for human adaptability. Are you sure? Zara's mind churned with possibilities. "I'm not certain of anything right now, but we need to consider every factor. If his body was already in a heightened state from the exposure, it could explain why the painkiller had such an amplified effect. It might have acted as a trigger, setting off a cascade of reactions in his system. She turned back to Alex, studying the peaceful expression on his face as he rested. Despite the calm that had settled over the room, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the surface of a much larger mystery. She reached out, gently brushing a lock of Alex's sweat-dampened hair away from his forehead. Her touch was tentative, almost reverent, as if she were afraid of disturbing whatever fragile balance had been restored. The medical bay's lights flickered, a subtle reminder of the station's position in the orbit of a volatile gas giant. Zara took a deep breath, trying to focus her thoughts. They had a temporary solution, but she knew that it wouldn't be enough. Alex's recovery depended on understanding exactly what had happened to him, and that meant diving deeper into the unknown. Prepare the biosynthesis analyzer, she instructed Vela. I want to see how the Rhizotrin 7 interacted with the proteins in his blood. If we can isolate the compound that caused the reaction, we might be able to understand its effects better. Vela nodded and moved to set up the analyzer, while Zara accessed the genetic database, cross-referencing known interactions between Class X radiation and human DNA. The process was painstaking, each piece of data another thread in a web that seemed to stretch endlessly before her. But as she pieced together the information, a new theory began to take shape. The Rhizotrin 7, when introduced to Alex's altered physiology, had bonded with proteins in his blood to create a compound that amplified neural transmission. This compound had acted like a booster, intensifying every signal passing through Alex's nervous system. It explained the heightened response, the uncontrollable sensations, the surge of adrenaline. But it also suggested something more, something that made Zara's breath catch in her throat. Vela, Zara said quietly, her voice barely more than a whisper. If I'm right, Alex's body wasn't just reacting to the drug, it was adapting to it. His nervous system was trying to integrate the effects, turning it into a new form of stimulus. Vela's eyes widened, the glow of her translucent face dimming slightly in surprise. You mean, his body was trying to use the compound to enhance itself? That's unprecedented. Humans don't have that kind of adaptive capacity, do they? Zara shook her head, her mind spinning with the implications. No, not normally. But if the radiation from the Class X pulses altered his DNA, even slightly, it could have triggered a latent potential, something we've never seen before. It's as if his body was trying to evolve, to turn the painkiller into something it could use. The realization hit Zara like a physical blow, and she felt her legs weaken beneath her. She leaned against the edge of the workstation, trying to steady herself. This discovery could change everything they thought they knew about human biology, about the limits of adaptability and survival. It could even hold the key to understanding new forms of life throughout the galaxy. But with that realization came a chilling thought: if Alex's body was changing, adapting to alien substances, then the risks were far greater than they had anticipated. His recovery was no longer just about stabilizing his condition, it was about managing an entirely new form of biology, one that could be as dangerous as it was promising. Zara turned back to the sleeping form of Alex, her gaze softening as she studied his face. She felt a surge of determination, a fierce resolve that burned through the uncertainty and fear. This young human, caught in the crossfire of cosmic forces, held within him a mystery that could reshape their understanding of life itself, and she was determined to see it through, no matter the cost. She straightened, her silvery hair cascading around her shoulders like a halo. Vela, keep monitoring his vitals. I need to prepare a report for the medical board. They need to know what we found, and they need to know now. It's this discovery. It's too important to keep hidden. Vela nodded, her expression a mix of awe and apprehension. And what about Alex? What if his condition changes again? Zara glanced back at the monitors, her jaw set with determination. Then we'll adapt, just like he has. We'll find a way to keep him stable, to guide his body through whatever changes it's undergoing. But we won't let him become a test subject. He's a person, and he deserves to be treated as such. With that, Zara turned and activated the comm system, her voice steady as she reached out to the medical board. The station's holographic interface shimmered to life, displaying the solemn faces of the board members' representatives from across the galaxy, each one a figure of authority in their respective fields. Medical Director Zara, you have urgent findings to report. One of the board members, a tall, stern-faced Nymerian, spoke, his voice carrying a note of impatience. Yes, Zara replied, meeting their gaze without flinching. I believe we've discovered an unprecedented interaction between human physiology and alien substances. It could change everything we know about adaptation and medical treatment in space. But we need your authorization for further research, and we need it immediately. As Zara outlined the events of the past hours, she felt a sense of purpose settle over her, a conviction that she was on the edge of something extraordinary. She knew that the road ahead would be filled with challenges, with risks she could scarcely imagine. But she also knew that she couldn't turn back. And as she spoke, she couldn't help but steal a glance at Alex, lying quietly on the treatment bed. He had become more than just a patient, he was a symbol of the unknown, a reminder that even in the vastness of space, there were still mysteries waiting to be uncovered. And Zara was determined to uncover them, no matter where the journey might lead. The board members listened intently, their expressions shifting from skepticism to intrigue. When Zara finished, they exchanged a series of quick, muted discussions. Finally, the Nymerian representative nodded. You have our authorization, Director. Proceed with caution and keep us updated on every development. This discovery could change the future of interspecies medicine. Zara bowed her head in acknowledgement, a small smile touching her lips. As the holographic projection faded, she turned back to Vela and Alex, a sense of determination surging through her veins. They had a long road ahead, but for the first time she felt a glimmer of hope, a belief that they could navigate this uncharted territory together. And as the station drifted through the darkness of space, Zara knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they were on the brink of something that could reshape the future of life among the stars.